My guest today is Dawn Piebenga, founder of Injury Management and Rehabilitation, a company she founded in 1997. IMR is Sydney's leading rehabilitation provider and focuses on facilitating the recovery of each individual to their fullest potential. Dawn, welcome.
Thank you,
Thanks
Suzi.
for joining
Thanks
us.
for having me.
Tell us how you got into this industry.
Well, I'm an occupational therapist by training, so it's quite a natural progression. I graduated in New Zealand, went to England and did a number of different things, and then arrived in Sydney and saw a tiny little advertisement, and it was two fabulous businesswomen who were employing their first employee. And I think because of that experience, because I started in a small company, I got the opportunity to kind of be a bit braver than perhaps a lot of other people. And I saw that these two women could do it, and within a year I thought, gosh, if they can, so can I. So sort of 6 months later, there I was on my own, eating mince for dinner.
And that was because?
It's a lot of it is customer service, and I was passionate about what I was doing, but I really enjoyed the people I was working with, both the injured workers, but in particular their employers. And so very quickly I worked out that in private business versus the hospitals, if you build relationships with people and they like you and they trust you and you do the things that you say you're going to do, they'll keep coming back for more. So really quickly I worked out that people will keep giving you more work if they like you. And that's sort of all it took to start a business. So the rest I didn't know until I'd started. And then that was a very steep learning curve, but by then it was a bit too late to turn around.
But now 14 years later.
Yeah, 15.
Almost 15
yep.
years later. Some things have changed. Like a lot of women, you started small, you grew the business, you acquired skills as you went along, but then you took some time to make a decision where you actually changed the structure of your business considerably. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, I'd grown my business to be quite big. It's quite a large industry, although not many people have heard about it unless they've had an accident. But there's about 150 to 200 competitors in New South Wales alone. And we had grown to be the 8th largest provider in New South Wales. So we were quite big. We had 4 satellite offices, and I was working really long hours. And I guess what I had discovered in those sort of 10 years of growth was it didn't seem to be getting any easier, and I was meeting other people in business who seemed to be doing it with less struggle. And so I spent some real time thinking about what I wanted to do. And in that time, met and married Patrick and had a little baby. And so in that whole sort of journey of deciding that I wanted to be a mum, but also not wanting to let go of my business, I had to really step back and think, how was I going to make it work? Because I couldn't have a baby and continue running the business in the same way. So during my pregnancy, I downsized significantly. So I went from just over 45 staff, I think we had 48 at the peak, to 8 in 6 months, yeah. So it was a huge, huge decision. And basically I got rid of all of middle and senior management and just kept the best performers. Because what I really thought about is when I'm on maternity leave, I only want people on my team who I don't have to micromanage. And what I discovered is that I had a large team, but I was actually having to do a lot of micromanaging of the managers as well as the junior staff, or micromanaging the managers to manage the staff. And I just thought, this is crazy. What I learned is that my revenue dropped by half, so I was no longer one of the big players. So I had to deal with some ego stuff around that. But my profit doubled.
And at the end of the day.
Yeah, that was a very, very big lesson for me. And as I said previously, you know, it's about the journey of what you learn. I'd never really thought that much about profit. I think I'd been measuring a lot of my success on revenue and, you know, size in the industry. And that's not actually the most important thing for me anymore as a mum. At the end of the day, it's how much time do I have to put into the business, what kind of quality of work are we doing, and what am I getting back from it? And that was the big lesson.
And I think that's a big lesson, because we do so often measure our success by either our income or our revenue, and not by what is there or the lifestyle that we're living. And now that you are, I know you've always been a very generous person because I've known you for a number of years, but now you are doing more and more contribution back to communities. You do fundraising. Tell us a bit about the work that you do outside of your work and why you do it.
Well, when I first met you and got to know you, Suzi was on a trip with Opportunity International, and I just got really touched by these entrepreneurs all over the world who had none of the resources that we had, none of the access to learning and development that we had, who were just so passionate about their products and their businesses and were wanting to have a go and were getting themselves out of poverty. And I've always stayed connected with it. And during the year, Patrick and I were thinking, well, what could we do? How could we fundraise? Patrick's a musician and he's very connected with some fabulously talented musicians. And so we thought, well, let's do something with music. So we put on our first gig last December, not the one that's just gone, but the one before. And yeah, we did an event, and I've never done an event before, so I learnt a lot. Gosh, that's a hard industry. But it was great, and we raised a lot of money, and people donated gifts for us, and we had silent auctions, but we had fabulous soprano singing, and it was just a success. So we did it again earlier in the year, and all up we've raised just over 30,000 just by putting on these 2 events. And I think the time that Patrick and I took into organising it was less than 3 weeks' work, you know. And
yet that money for those
it's a whole village in India.
Yes, a whole village will be able to benefit from that. One of the areas that I know you're passionate about is mentoring, and that you do put time into mentoring young women. Tell me about the role of mentoring and what's in it for you?
Yeah. Well, I started off as a mentoree, so that's where I got my taste of the mentoring experience. I did a program through the ABN for young businesswomen, and what's interesting today is a number of the women that I met in that program are still around, have fabulous businesses. Most of them have grown, and they're quite high profile businesswomen in Sydney. So I think I got lucky and got into a great group, but I'm sure everybody feels that about their group. But my experience was great, and I was mentoring with a woman who knew nothing about my industry, but she had such great skills in sales and marketing, and that was exactly where I needed some support. So she was great, and from that experience I thought, well, I'm sure I've got some skills I can give back. It's probably just a matter of being a good match. And with time I worked out that it's just my experiences of having been in business for a number of years and being a sounding board. These women are so courageous. They're taking all the risks that I did when I first started out that I've perhaps become less courageous around. And so it's great for me to be exposed to people who are out there just putting themselves on the line, who are setting up meetings with people that, you know, it just takes a big breath of air to do it. And that inspires me. So when I'm sitting there and they're brainstorming their problem, I'm seeing solutions for my business, left, right and centre, and I'm seeing opportunities. I'm also having a conversation with a person who's generally in their mid-20s, and that's what most of my team are. And it's quite an intimate relationship with a mentoree, and it gives me access to a way of thinking that helps me perhaps relate better to my team members. Yeah, so I love it.
Reward.
Yeah, yeah, I really love it. It's very rewarding. And, you know, everyone has a network. So within their network, you get to become part of a bigger network again, and I think that's, you know, one of my tips is make sure you get out there and build a network. You need to do it in Sydney. It's a networking city, and also you need to do it when you're in business. So mentoring's another way of doing that.
Well, just on tips, a couple more that you could leave us with for those who perhaps are in that point in their business where they need to make a decision about what to focus on or where to move forward to.
The most important tip I've ever had was the owner of Gloria Jeans. Is it Peter Irving? I think that's his name. Anyway, he said, don't flog a dead horse. And I tell you, when he said it, I was so flogging a dead horse. And what he meant was not necessarily close down your whole business, but look at your business and work out what parts of it are working and what aren't. And I went away from that evening really, like it was like a, oh my gosh, I've got a dead horse. And I really, that's what I'd say to everyone. Just keep looking at your business and go, what parts are working and what parts aren't? Because I think what happens is that we take on new things, but we don't stop to review the old things. I personally take on new things because I'm excited by new, but not all new things are great. And sometimes I'll keep doing it because all my staff will keep doing it because they think that's what I expect them to, even though they know it's a dead horse as well. So don't flog a dead horse, important. Networking I've talked about, just get out there and build your network. You just don't know who knows, somebody who can help you. LinkedIn, oh my goodness, I'm just discovering it. That's the most amazing thing. It's incredible who knows somebody who needs to know you. Another tip would be take time out of your business. So make sure you take leave. I never did that for the first 5 years in business, and that was to my detriment. I nearly threw it in. So you need to take leave, and you know, when you're a business owner, you kind of never stop, but you can turn emails off, you can turn your phone off. Read a business book if you want to stay engaged with the world of business, but don't be in it all the time. Working 2.5 days a week has allowed me to think much more strategically about what I do with my time, but also what we do as a business. So, you know, I'd had 10 years of people saying, work on your business, not in it. And I didn't really know what they meant until I stepped back. And the minute I stepped back, I could see what they really meant. And working on your business as the owner is the only thing you should be doing.
Thank you so much for joining us.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.